Hello and welcome to Home Studies e-learning for First. In this lesson we are going to look at questions. Let's begin. WH question words. Who, person or people. What, something. When, time. Where, place. Which, choice. Why, reason. Whose, ownership. How, way or manner. Let's have a look at some examples. Who is the new manager? Person. What are you going to buy Layla for her birthday? Something. When are you moving house? Time. Where are the keys to the safe? Place. Which colour do you prefer, red or green? Look at the picture. The lady has a decision to make. She has a choice, either the red dress or the green dress. So which is choice? Why is Robert so angry? Reason. Whose bag is that? Ownership. How did you get here so quickly? Way, manner. Now, let's look at the difference between what and which. We use what when there is not a limited choice. So, for example, what did you do last weekend? I went to the cinema, I went to a restaurant, I washed the car, I bought some shoes, etc. Also, what is your favourite animal? A cat, a dog, a guinea pig, a mouse, a parrot, etc. So we use what when there is not a limited choice. However, we use which when there is a limited choice. So for example, which one are you going to buy? The red dress or the green dress? Remember the lady in the picture? She had a decision to make. She had a choice. There were two dresses, so it's a limited choice. Another example. Which flavour would you like? Vanilla, strawberry or chocolate? There are 3 flavours to choose from, so it's a limited choice. And finally, which countries in Europe have you visited? It's a limited choice because we're asking about the countries in Europe, not all over the world, so it's limited. So remember, the difference between what and which is that we use what when there is not a limited choice, and we use which when there is a limited choice. Now, let's have a look at indirect ways of asking questions. Now, you might learn something new in this section. Let's have a look. Now, we use indirect ways of asking questions in order to be more polite. For example, could you tell me? I was wondering. I would be interested to know. Would it be possible? I would like to know. Would you mind? So if you want to be more polite, then try using an indirect way of asking a question. Now let's have a look at some rules and then we'll have some practice. So, if you have a direct question and it uses a yes or no question, therefore there is no WH question word within the direct question. When we are changing it to an indirect question, we will use if or whether. So for example, do you like popcorn? Well, I don't know whether you like popcorn or you don't like popcorn, but I'm expecting your answer to be either yes or no. And notice there is no WH question within the question. So, when we make it into an indirect question, we would say, would you mind telling me if you like popcorn? Another example. Are you going on holiday next year? I don't know. I'm not a mind reader. However, I'm expecting you to say yes or no. And notice there is no WH question word within that question. Therefore, when it's being made into an indirect question, we can use if or whether. We have to use if or whether. So for example, I was wondering whether you are going on holiday next year. So remember, if the answer is going to be yes or no, then we will use if or whether in the indirect question. Don't worry if you don't understand this, you will have practice later on during the test. Now, direct questions with is or are. So, when we're making it into an indirect question, is or are comes after the subject. So for example, where is the nearest supermarket? That's a direct question. So if I'm going to make that into an indirect question, I am going to say, would you mind telling me where the nearest supermarket is? So is after the subject. Another example, where are my house keys? So the word are is in the direct question, so in the indirect question, the word are is going to come after the subject. I was wondering where my house keys are. So remember, direct questions with is or are. In the indirect question, is or are comes after the subject. Now, direct questions with do, does, or did. If you're going to make that into an indirect question, you do not use do, does, or did. So let's have a look at some examples. The first one, direct question. What time does the next train to London leave? So, it uses the word does in the direct question. Then, in the indirect question, we would say, could you tell me what time the next train to London leaves? In the indirect question, I do not use the word does. And notice that in the direct question, we use the word leave. And in the indirect question, it changes to leaves. Now, another example. When did you decide to become a doctor? In the direct question, I have used the word did. But in the indirect question, I will not use the word did. I will say, I would like to know when you decided to become a doctor. And note that in the direct question, we use the word decide, and then in the indirect question, we've had to use the word decided because we're talking about the past. So, direct questions with do, does, or did, when you're making them into the indirect question, do not use do, does, or did, and make sure you are using the correct tense. Now, here there are 3 questions. I am going to give you 1 minute, okay, to change these direct questions into indirect questions. So you may begin now. Okay, time's up. Let's have a look. So, the first one, when did you finish writing your book? So, we could say, could you tell me when you finished writing your book? So remember, direct question has used the word did. So in the indirect, you cannot use the word did. So, could you tell me when you finished writing your book? And remember, okay, you've had to change the word finish to finished because you're talking about the past. So remember the tense as well. Now the second one, are you going to Italy next year? I don't know. So I am going to use the word if in the sentence. I'd like to know if you are going to Italy next year. And finally, do you like pop music? Maybe you don't. Maybe you prefer rock music or classical music. So the answer is going to be yes or no. Therefore, in the indirect question, I'm going to use if or whether. So I'd be interested to know whether you like pop music. Now, let's move on to question tags. Now, a question tag is a short question which is placed at the end of a statement. And we use these to either check or confirm information or request information or help. Now, there's a general rule when we use question tags. Here it is. Positive statement, we will use a negative question tag. If we have a negative statement, we will use a positive question tag. This is the general rule, so remember this. Positive statement, negative question tag, negative statement, positive question tag. Let's have a look at some examples. So, here are some examples, but here we have a few more rules as well. So, if the verb to be is in the statement, it also needs to be in the question tag. So, they are brothers, aren't they? She isn't a doctor, is she? So let's look at the first one. They are brothers, aren't they? So the verb to be is used in both the statement and the question tag. Now, in green, we have positive, and in red, negative. So the first part, they are brothers, is a positive statement, therefore the question tag has to be negative. And the second one, she isn't a doctor, is a negative statement, and the question tag, is she? It's positive question tag. And notice that the verb to be is repeated in both the statement and the question tag. And another rule to remember, if there is an auxiliary or a modal verb in the statement, it needs to be in the question tag. So for example, you haven't been to New York, have you? So here, the first part, the statement is negative, but the question tag is positive. And another example, he would rather go and watch the match. Positive statement, wouldn't he? Negative question tag. So remember, if the verb to be is in the statement, it needs to be in the question tag. And if there is an auxiliary or a modal verb in the statement, it needs to be in the question tag as well. And remember, positive statement, negative question tag, negative statement, positive question tag. Now, if there is no modal or auxiliary verb, then we're going to use to do in the question tag. So for example, he cooks dinner for us every Saturday night. So in the statement, there is no modal verb and there is no auxiliary verb. So in the question tag, we're going to use doesn't he. Now the statement is positive, so the question tag has to be negative. Another example, she likes Italian food, doesn't she? So she likes Italian food, positive, doesn't she? Negative question tag. Another example, he won the lottery, didn't he? So he won the lottery, that's positive, so the question tag has to be negative. Now, if you look here, it says he won, so that's the past. So the question tag will be didn't he, because of the past. And finally, they danced the tango every night when they were in Argentina, didn't they? So, positive statement, negative question tag. So if there's no modal or auxiliary verb in the statement, then you're going to use to do in the question tag. And make sure you use the correct tense when you do this. Now, when we use let's in a statement, we will always use shall we in the question tag. So for example, let's go to the museum this afternoon, shall we? Let's have a pizza tonight, shall we? That looks really good. delicious in fact. Now, if we use I am in the statement, we will use aren't I in the question tag. So, for instance, I am good at baking cakes, aren't I? I am an excellent tennis player, aren't I? And finally, I'm not. So if we use I'm not in the statement, then the question tag would be am I? So, I'm not staying in this room, am I? I'm not allowed to go out tonight, am I? So remember, let's in the statement, shall we in the question tag. I am in the statement, aren't I in the question tag. I'm not in the statement, am I in the question tag. Now, imperatives or instructions. If we use those in the statement, we will use will you in the question tag. So, stop talking, will you? Turn the music down, will you? Another. So, nothing, everything or something in the statement. We are going to use it in the question tag, but it will be at the end. So, for example, nothing went right on our holiday, did it? So, it is at the end of the question tag. Now, nothing went right on our holiday is negative because we've used the word nothing. Therefore, we're going to use a positive question tag. Everything went according to plan, didn't it? So we've got a positive statement and a negative question tag. And the last one, something really bad happened to them, didn't it? So positive statement, negative question tag. And notice that the word it is at the end of the question tag. And finally, everybody or everyone and somebody or someone. We use they in the question tag at the end. So for example, everybody is invited to the party, aren't they? Okay, so we've got positive statement, negative question tag, and they is at the end of the question tag. And another example, somebody stole my mobile phone, didn't they? Somebody stole my mobile phone, positive statement, didn't they? Negative question tag, and they is at the end. And finally, there is or was. We use the word there in the question tag at the end. So, for example, there wasn't enough room on the bus, was there? Notice the word there at the end of the question tag. The statement is negative, therefore the question tag is positive. The second example, there was a storm last night, positive statement. So therefore, the question tag will be negative, wasn't there? And there is at the end of the question tag. And finally, there is a flight tomorrow evening, isn't there? So, statement is positive, therefore the question tag is negative. So hopefully in this lesson you have learnt something new. Don't worry if you haven't, because you will have the opportunity now to have some more practice. So now it's test time. Good luck.